Imagine this. It's November 4th, 2025, election night in New York City, and Zohran Mamdani, the unapologetic democratic socialist from Queens, the guy who's been fighting rent hikes and cop budgets since he hit the state assembly, just crushes the mayoral race with 50.4% of the vote. He's beating out Curtis Sliwa and even a comeback bid from Andrew Cuomo, becoming the youngest mayor since 1892, the first Muslim and South Asian leader of the biggest city in America. Crowds are erupting in Jackson Heights, tenants hugging strangers, DSA flags waving like it's the revolution we've been waiting for. And that's not even the half of it. Out in Spokane, Washington, progressives just swept the city council, flipping it to a 6-1 left majority, cementing that blue oasis in the red East Washington desert amid backlash to Trump's whatever the hell policies. These aren't flukes, they're signals. The base is done with half measures, done with the corporate whispers in the party's ear. But here's the gut punch, the betrayal that makes your blood boil. While we're still popping champagne on these wins, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the guy who's supposed to be our firewall against the MAGA circus, is hunkered down in a shutdown standoff, cutting a backroom deal on November 10th that kicks progressive priorities like expanded housing subsidies straight to the curb to appease centrist defectors and avoid a full government freeze. This isn't just sloppy leadership, it's a choice. Schumer's caucus just prolonged the longest shutdown in history, 21 days and counting by last count, rejecting a Democratic counterproposal for Obamacare extensions because it might ruffle Republican feathers too much, leaving federal workers furloughed and SNAP benefits on the chopping block. Families are scrambling. You and I are watching our tax dollars fund this circus, and all the while, real estate PACs, the same ones flooding Schumer's campaign chest with $2.1 million in the last cycle alone, according to Open Secrets, are breathing easy because no one's touching their eviction machines. Two worlds colliding right there, one where progressives like Zohran and the Spokane squad are surging on promises of rent caps and worker power, and another where the establishment clings to donor checkbooks, blocking the very reforms that could save 45 million renters from the next wave of filings, up 68% in NYC since 2023, per Housing Court data. It looks disconnected, right? Like election euphoria versus DC drudgery. But let me be real with you. This is the fracture line. The machine cracking under the weight of its own greed, the people rising, the elites panicking, and today, from Zohran Mamdani's unfiltered lens, we're diving deep into how these wins aren't just feel-good stories, they're the earthquake shaking the DNC to its foundations. I know what you're thinking. Hell, I've been there. Fists clenched in tenant union halls, watching the same old script play out. They always win we vote, they pivot back to the donors. But not this time, because the polls don't lie. A fresh Ipsos survey from November 7th shows 52% of Democratic voters, that's us, that's you, demanding a hard left turn, prioritizing bold shifts on housing and wages over the pragmatic compromises that keep us broke. Leaks from Progressive Caucus insiders to The Intercept are buzzing about 2026 primaries, where squad-backed challengers are polling ahead in red districts, threatening to primary the Schumer loyalists who just sold us out on the shutdown. And Zohran, fresh off his victory speech on November 5th, where he straight up called out the corporate capture of the party on CBS News, he's not whispering. He's roaring for accountability. This isn't hype. This is momentum, the kind that topples walls. Let that sink in for a second. Picture it. You're in Zohran's community office in Astoria, Queens, not some sterile campaign HQ, but a real spot with folding chairs scarred from strategy sessions, walls plastered with eviction flyers, and Bernie 16 posters. It's the day after the election, November 5th, and the phone's ringing off the hook. Tenant organizers from Brooklyn, nurses from the Bronx, even a delegation from Spokane beaming in via Zoom, all saying the same thing. We did it, now what? Zohran leans into the camera, that steady gaze you've seen tearing into landlords on WNYC, and lays it out. This win isn't mine, it's ours. But if the party brass in DC keeps blocking rent relief while taking real estate cash, we're building parallel power, city by city, strike by strike. Let me take you back a bit further, because to understand the panic upstairs, you gotta see how we got here. Rewind to June 2025, when the first tremors hit. That's when the DNC's post-midterm autopsy, leaked in bits to Politico, revealed the ugly truth. Democrats hemorrhaged working-class votes not to Trump 2.0, but to apathy, because 60% of non-voters under 35 cited the party ignores economic justice as their reason, per a Gallup deep dive. Bernie Sanders, still out there grinding at 84, drops his quarterly newsletter on July 1st, blasting the hollowing out of the party by NGO consultants and Wall Street whispers, echoing a Jacobin piece from August 23rd that called it a de-alignment disaster. AOC, fresh from her town hall in the Bronx on August 15th, posts on X. Progressives aren't the fringe, we're the fire. Time to burn down the donor gates. Views explode to 2 million overnight and out west. Spokane's progressive bloc starts organizing recall whispers against their lone conservative council holdout, setting the stage for the November sweep. What were we told back then? The establishment line straight from Pelosi's swan song interviews in spring, unity above all, no purity tests. Translation, swallow the pharma ads, the oil subsidies, the endless Israel aid packages that bleed our budgets dry, but what really happened? While they preached compromise, the base was building. DSA chapters tripled membership in red states, from Texas to Pennsylvania, coordinating with Justice Democrats for a slate of 50-plus challengers. By September, a Welcome PACS poll of 200,000 voters warned left-wing economic populism polls at 55% approval among Dems, but trust in the party to deliver it, a measly 38%. That's not a glitch, that's the ground shifting. Real estate giants like related companies ramped up lobbying spends to $50 million by Q3 per Open Secrets, targeting exactly the rent cap bills Zohran's team was drafting for Albany. Fast forward to October, the air's thick with urgency. Trump's shadow cabinet is leaking abundance agenda nonsense, code for deregulate everything, and Schumer's war room in the Capitol is buzzing. On October 10th, Nate Silver's newsletter drops a bombshell. Is the Democratic Party dominated by progressives or centrists? Neither. But the base is pulling left, and compromise picks like Harris in 2024 bombed because they smelled like more of the same. Within 48 hours, AOC and Ilhan Omar co-host a virtual rally pulling 100,000 viewers, framing the midterms as our last stand against the hollow party. Donations to progressive PACs spike 300%, outpacing DNC hauls for the first time since 16, and Zohran, he's barnstorming the 5 boroughs, hitting 20 events in 30 days, from CUNY panels to Harlem block parties, hammering home, NYC's housing crisis isn't a bug. It's the feature of a DC that's bought by the same landlords evicting our neighbors. Election day hits like a thunderclap. November 4th, polls close at 9 p.m. Eastern, and the map lights up blue left. Zohran's concession call from Sliwa comes at 10:47 p.m. Gracious, but you can hear the salt. By midnight, Spokane's results roll in. Progressive Sarah Dixit ekes out a win over incumbent Zach Zappone, 51 to 49%, completing the sweep and shrinking conservative seats to one NPR's calling it November 5th. Democrats' notable wins up and down the ballot, from Georgia State House flips to Pennsylvania mayors, a progressive pulse beating strong. Al Jazeera chimes in, historic night with Dems taking New Jersey and Virginia governors, plus Proposition 50 in California capping corporate PAC spends. The squad's group chat, or so sources whisper to ABC News, is electric. This is our moment, no more concessions. But here's the reaction they didn't see coming, or maybe they did, and that's why the panic set in. By sunrise on the 5th, Schumer's on the Senate floor, voice steady but eyes darting, announcing bipartisan talks to avert shutdown, code for caving progressives erupt. Rashida Tlaib tweets at 7:23 a.m. Wins like Zohran's show the base wants justice, not more Wall Street winks. Chuck, step up or step aside. Elizabeth Warren, usually the bridge builder, piles on in a Boston Globe op-ed that afternoon. The establishment's grip is slipping because the people are awake. Housing reform now, or lose the House in 2026. Within hours, a third-way counterpoll, those centrist darlings, admits 48% of Dem primary voters favor progressive challengers over incumbents in safe seats. Stack the evidence, friends. Open Secrets tracks $15 million from real estate to Senate Dems in 2025 alone, with Schumer's take at the top, $1.2 million fresh since January, funneled through PACs like the Realtors Political Action Committee. That's not coincidence, that's causation. The same week, Zohran's victory speech vows good cause eviction bans citywide. A leaked DNC memo, splashed across the Atlantic on November 6th, reveals donor briefings panicking over squad influence in urban races, with real estate execs threatening to sit out 26 if rent caps hit the agenda. Polling from Progress Texas on November 6th, 55% of Latino Dems in swing states credit progressive messaging for the turnout surge, and Fox News, yeah, even they, is griping on the 7th about a socialist wave coast to coast, rallying around Mamdani's NYC upset. Now, here's what they tried to bury, the thread that ties the joy in the streets to the sweat in the suites. As Spokane's new council majority drafts their first anti-eviction ordinance on November 12th, Schumer's shutdown deal, inked November 10th, explicitly shelves federal rent relief riders, per PBS reporting, to keep the peace. With mansion holdovers, progressives are fed up, renewing calls for his ouster, not whispers, but floor speeches from Cori Bush's allies. The base? We're not waiting, Zohran's transition team announces November 13th. Partnerships with tenant unions for a citywide rent strike if Albany drags feet. That's the escalation. That's the fracture widening. Think about that for a minute. We've got Zohran Mamdani, fresh off his November 4th landslide, 50.4% of the vote, per the Associated Press call, beating back Cuomo's comeback and Sliwa's noise with a turnout not seen since '69, standing in Flushing Meadows on the 5th, vowing to ban good cause evictions citywide by January. He's got the DSA chanting his name, AOC retweeting his speech to her 13 million followers. This is what the people demand, housing as a right, not a racket. And 2,500 miles west in Spokane, Sarah Dixit's razor-thin upset over Jonathan Bingle, 50.32% to 49.68%, finalized November 10th after a ballot count nail-biter, seals a 6-1 progressive council supermajority per the Spokesman-Review. Kate Tellis crushed her opponent 60.8% to 39.2%. Zach Zappone held 54%. It's a clean sweep, the kind that has conservative PACs like the Spokane Good Government Alliance licking wounds after dumping $2.5 million since 19 with nothing to show. These aren't isolated vibes. This is the base. You, me, the nurses skipping lunch to canvas, the baristas turning out at dawn, screaming for change. And what does the establishment do? They dig in deeper, like a landlord hiking rent during a flood. On November 10th, as Zohran's transition team inks deals with tenant unions for a potential citywide strike, Schumer's brokering the shutdown endgame. A bare-bones funding bill through January, no ACA subsidy extensions, no SNAP safeguards, just a clean reopen that leaves $24 million on the hook for premium spikes come December 1st, according to Reuters reporting. 8 Dem senators, moderates like Jeanne Shaheen and Mark Warner, jump ship, voting with Thune to advance it, per The Guardian's blow-by-blow Schumer. He votes no, but insiders whisper to Axios he twisted arms to drag this mess into November, betting on open enrollment panic to force GOP concessions that never came. Let me paint the scene for you, because I've been in these trenches. Not from some beltway perch, but shoulder to shoulder in Astoria basements, where Zohran's volunteers map eviction hotspots on butcher paper, coffee going cold as they plot the next push. It's November 7th, 3 days post-election, and the air's electric with that rare hope you can taste, like the morning after Bernie's 16 Michigan upset AOCs on a call with the Spokane victors, her voice crackling over speaker. This sweep, it's proof the math is on our side, but DC's already moving to neuter it. Cut to the Capitol war rooms. Dim lights, Schumer's team huddled over printouts, real estate lobbyists, those ghosts from related companies, who shelled out $50 million in Q3 lobbying per Open Secrets. Dialing furiously as the shutdown clock's 28 days, they're not panicking yet. They're calculating. How to thread the needle, reopen without giving an inch on the subsidies that could cap premiums for the working poor. The same folks Zohran's pledging free clinics for. You feel that tension? It's the fracture's second wave. The one where the winds in the streets slam against the walls in Washington. Let's unpack it, layer by layer, because this isn't random chaos. It's the system exposed, donor dollars dictating deadlines while families stare down empty fridges. Start with the shutdown itself. It kicked off October 1st, remember? Trump 2.0's abundance agenda, deregulate/repeat, hits a snag when Dems tie funding to blocking his Medicaid carve-outs from the summer omnibus. By October 28th, Schumer's on the floor, per Reuters. This could drag into November when ACA credits expire and bills skyrocket in 30 states. Bold talk. But behind closed doors, he's greenlighting the holdout per Axios leaks to weaponize enrollment season, November 1st open signups, where premiums could jump 40% without those credits, hitting 12 million marketplace enrollees hardest, census data shows. Meanwhile, the base is mobilizing. On November 5th, election hangover be damned, tenant unions in NYC launch Rent Strike November, inspired by Zohran's vow. By the 6th, 5,000 march from City Hall to Schumer's Brooklyn Digs, chanting, "Fund the people, not the PACs." Signs read, "Schumer's 1.2 million from realtors since January. Open Secrets doesn't lie." That's real money tracing real betrayal. The National Association of Realtors. PAC alone funneled 2.1 million to Senate Dems in the 24 cycle. Schumer's sliced the fattest. And what do they get? A shutdown deal that shelves federal rent relief riders. PBS confirms November 10th to keep bipartisan peace. Peace for whom? Not the 45 million renters facing a 68% eviction spike in NYC since 2023. Housing Court stats scream. Now watch the ripples hit the party core. Emerson's November 3rd to 4th poll drops the 7th, 44% back, a generic Dem for 2026 House races, up 4 from October. But dig deeper. 52% of Dem voters say the party's too centrist on economics, demanding bold like Zohran's tax the rich platform that polled 55% approval in urban swing districts. Reuters Ipsos echoes it November 13th. Dems more energized for 2026 than GOP, 41% to 40% on the generic ballot, with 39% now saying the party's found its way post-wins, but only if it leans left. Progress Texas chimes in the 6th. 55% of Latino Dems credit progressive turnout machines for the surge. Even Politico's postmortem on the 5th admits suburbs swung back blue, non-college whites ticked left by 5 points from 2024, thermostatic backlash to Trump's chaos, but fueled by affordability rage that Mamdani and Dixit owned. The establishment, they're sweating bullets. Leaks to The Atlantic. November 6th, DNC donor briefings freak over squad spillover. Zohran's win, Spokane's lock, with real estate execs threatening to ghost 26 if caps creep federal Schumer's impact PAC, which doled $1.5 million to Senate Dems since 10 per Open Secrets, suddenly looks like a liability. By the 8th, Thune's rejecting Schumer's scaled-back offer, 1-year ACA extension for a clean CR, CNBC reports. But it's the Dem defections that sting. Shaheen tells Axios, "We couldn't let furloughs hit 800,000 workers into December." Progressives erupt. Rashida Tlaib on X, November 9th. 8 traders just handed Trump a win. Schumer's silence? Complicity. Cori Bush's camp floats primary challenges for all 8. Zoom out to the human cost, because that's where the outrage boils over. Picture this. A Bronx nurse, furloughed since October, scrolling Zohran's victory feed on the 5th, heart lifting at his promise of universal childcare pilots by spring. Then November 10th hits, shutdown ends, but her ACA premium, up $300 monthly without credits, per Kaiser Family Foundation estimates. She's one of 42 million on SNAP, benefits frozen mid-month. Trump himself pushes SCOTUS November 11th to keep him iced. Guardian logs. In Spokane, Dixit's swearing-in crowd, November 12th cheers anti-eviction drafts. But federal SNAP cuts ripple. Local food banks report 20% demand spike per Washington state standard. That's the parallel power play. Cities surging while DC dithers, exposing the DNC's donor chokehold. And the squad, they're the spark. Bernie, November 8th newsletter. Spokane, NYC, these are the models. Schumer's cave proves the old guard's obsolete. Ilhan Omar hosts a November 9th Zoom with Zohran pulling 50,000. We're not asking permission anymore. 26 starts now. Primary the betrayers. Donations flood Justice Democrats. $1.2 million in 72 hours. Their biggest post-20 haul. But here's the turning point. The pivot where fracture becomes full break. November 12th, as House votes the Senate bill. Hakeem Jeffries backing it but whispering to CNN, Schumer stays but reforms or bust. A leaked third-way memo hits Politico. Centrists admit 48% of primary voters favor progressive challengers in safe seats. Real estate PACs pivot, $15 million to Senate Dems YTD, but whispers of boycotts if squad influence grows. Zohran, November 13th. WNYC spot. DC's panic is our power rent caps in NYC by fiat if Albany stalls, and will export the blueprint. This wave, it's cresting. The evidence stacks. Polls shifting, donors defecting, defections dividing. Now here's the layer they fear most. The deeper rot, the 26 primaries where grassroots cash outpaces PAC slush. The deeper rot, The 26 primaries where grassroots cash outpaces PAC slush, where the squad's blueprint turns from whisper to war cry, and where Zohran's NYC blueprint, rent caps by executive order if Albany blinks, becomes the playbook for flipping seats from coast to coast. We've seen the wins, felt the fracture, tasted the betrayal in that shutdown cave on November 10th. But let's go deeper, because this isn't just about one vote or one victory. It's about the meaning, the raw, unfiltered truth of a party owned by donors but owed to us, a system crumbling under its own weight, and a movement that's finally, gloriously refusing to wait. Picture the boardrooms first, because that's where the panic's thickest, the kind you can smell through the mahogany and the single malt haze. It's November 14th, 4 days after the shutdown ink dries without a single ACA credit extension, and real estate titans from related companies, the same crew that dropped $50 million on lobbying in Q3 per Open Secrets, are huddled in a Midtown Manhattan war room. Phones buzzing with DNC alerts. Zohran's transition team just announced citywide good cause eviction bans for January 1st. No Albany approval needed, citing emergency powers under the city charter. Leaked memos splashed across the Atlantic site that morning show execs fuming. Mamdani's win spikes urban risk premiums 15%. If this spreads to federal riders, we're pulling all 26 contributions. That's $15 million YTD to Senate Dems evaporating. Schumer's $1.2 million slice the first casualty. Let that sink in. The people vote for justice, and the elites vote with their feet or their checkbooks straight out the door. Cut to Spokane, where the air's crisp with that post-sweep high. Sarah Dixit's swearing in on November 12th, razor-thin 50.32% over Bingle, per the Spokesman-Review's final tally, draws 500 to City Hall, DSA banners fluttering beside union flags. She's drafting the first anti-eviction ordinance, mirroring Zohran's playbook, density bonuses for affordable builds, clawbacks on corporate subsidies if rents spike local food banks, slammed by snap freezes from the shutdown, 20% demand up, Washington State Standard reports are the backdrop. Dixit leans into the mic. This isn't blue versus red, it's us versus the machine. Trump's chaos gave us the mandate, now we deliver. Cheers erupt, but the subtext? Federal betrayals ripple. Without those credits, 12 million marketplace enrollees face 40% premium hikes, Census Bureau warns, hitting Spokane's working poor hardest. Now, zoom to D.C., where the fracture's fault lines glow under fluorescent lights. Schumer's office, November 11th. He's on the hot seat, 8 caucus defectors, Shaheen, Warner, the lot, facing floor speeches from Rashida Tlaib's allies, per Politico's TikTok. Bernie drops his newsletter that afternoon. Schumer's cave, a donor dictate. Spokane, NYC, these are the models. The old guard's obsolete. Ilhan Omar's Zoom with Zohran pulls 50,000 by evening. Donations to Justice Democrats hitting $1.2 million in 72 hours. Their fattest post-20 haul AOC's X thread at 9 p.m. 8 traders handed Trump the win. But the base, we're the real power. 26 starts with primaries, no more concessions. Views, 3 million by dawn. This is the deeper meaning, friends. The rot isn't just greed, it's generational theft. Think about it. Schumer turns 75 next month. Pelosi's eyeing that sunset clause, yet they're blocking the bold, while 52% of Dem voters, Ipsos, November 7th, demand the left turn on housing, wages, the basics. Emerson's national poll drops November 3rd to 4th. Dems edge the generic ballot 44 to 40, but 52% call the parties too centrist on economics, craving Zohran's tax-the-rich vibe that pulled 55% in urban swings. Reuters/Ipsos echoes November 13th. 39% say the party's found its way post-wins, but only if it leans in. 41% energized for 2026, topping GOP's 40% progress. Texas nails it November 6th. 55% of Latino Dems credit progressive machines for the surge. The forecast? Stormy for the suits, sunny for the streets. Third Way's leaked memo, Politico, November 12th, admits the panic. 48% of primary voters back progressive challengers in safe seats, up 10 from 2024 Justice Democrats' slate. 50-plus bids announced by November 14th, targeting Schumer loyalists in NY10, CA12, the works. Zohran's on WNYC that morning. DC's sweat is our spark, export the blueprint. Rent strikes, union halls, no more donor gates. Donation spike. Way to Win reports $5 million in 48 hours from small dollar fury, outpacing DNC hauls for the first time since 16. But here's the heart of it, the takeaway that keeps me up at night and fired up at dawn. This fracture, it's our fracture. Your rent check bouncing while Schumer shakes realtor hands. Your kids' clinic visits spiking $300 because 8 senators picked peace over people. The human toll, $24 million on ACA subsidies teetering, per Reuters. 42 million SNAP families frozen mid-month. Trump pushing SCOTUS to keep them iced. Guardian logs Bronx nurses furloughed since October, scrolling Zohran's feed for hope, only to hit premium walls. Spokane baristas post-Dixit cheers, rationing groceries as banks report 20% hikes in food insecurity. Yet in that pain, the seed of something unstoppable. We've got the math. Young voters, 18 to 29, went Dem by 35 points in Virginia, NJ per exits. 31% of NJ's electorate, crushing Cheryl's win by 13. Non-college whites ticked left 5 from 24. Politico's postmortem confirms. Thermostatic backlash to Trump's abundance dereg fest, but fueled by affordability rage that Mamdani owned the squad's not fringe. Their fire. Elizabeth Warren's Globe op-ed, November 5th. The grip's slipping because the people's awake. Housing now or lose 2026. So what's at stake? Everything. Your home, your healthcare, your future, or the 99% if we're splitting hairs, but we're not. This is us versus them. Tenants in Jackson Heights versus lobbyists in K Street suites, nurses in the Bronx versus pharma packs, you and me scrolling this video versus the machine that's crushed us too long. The call? Rise with it. Join the rent strike. Zohran's team drops toolkits November 15th, city by city. Chip to Justice Democrats. Their 26 war chest hits $10 million by December, per insiders. Hit the streets. AOC's next town hall, Bronx, November 20th. 5,000 RSVP'd already. Call your rep. Demand Schumer steps aside or face the primary tsunami and vote. Not just 26, but every local scrap, every union vote, every school board nod. Because we've seen the blueprint. Spokane's 6-1 left lock. NYC's youngest mayor torching evictions. A base that's 52% done with half measures. Let me be real. They'll fight dirty. Fox's November 7th screed, socialist wave from Mamdani's upset threatens heartland. Real estate boycotts, DNC whispers of unity codes for cave, but we've got the wind. Record NYC turnout since 69, 2 million votes for justice. The people are waking up. Hell, we're wide awake. And in Zohran's words from that victory stage November 5th, this isn't the end of the fight, it's the dawn. So dawn with us. Smash like, share this fire, subscribe for the next drop, because the fracture's here, the wins are real, and the revolution, it's ours. We've been betrayed, but we're unbreakable. Justice for the 99% starts now.